up, everyone? So in today's video, I want to speak to you about one of the biggest mistakes that people make when it comes to the concept of investing. Now, this video might end up being a bit long, so if it's on one of the on my say TikTok channel, it might be posted over three parts. YouTube, I'll just post it in one part, and maybe Facebook as well. Wherever else I posted, it might be in multiple parts. So make sure you follow part one up to however many it might have. Right? So we're gonna speak about this concept of investing, and more specifically, how people are making this mistake where they're thinking that the investing is what is gonna bring the wealth. Right? And I'm not gonna be speaking about this from the perspective of say financial planning where you're saving up for retirement. That's something completely different. This here is more where people are trying to get rich quick, right? And it just doesn't work like that. So for a long time I used to look at sometimes I used to have some high net worth clients that I would look at, but I would look at their property portfolios, and as such I would need to look at their entire financial portfolio because we would have to raise debt or credit for them. So I would basically see how they structure the entire business, right? And that was very, very advantageous, right? I learned a lot from that. So if you think about it like in life, right? So we've got life over here, and we're all trying to achieve something, right? So it's things like, you want the house, and we want the car or cars, multiple of them, and then you've got some people want fancy vacations, little palm tree. You want to build a legacy for the kids, family, right? You're trying to build a legacy over there. Whatever you're trying to do over here, right? But all of this, what does it require? It requires money. Right, so the money gives that, right? So what we tend to do, or what we're hoping, we can achieve all of this by, say, getting a job, right? But then very quickly you find out that maybe for some of you the goal here is so big, right? That's the goal, and then you get to this thing over here and you find that it's really small. So one of my mentors used to say, your dream doesn't fit into the reality, right? So you can see this here is not enough to get you all of those things, right? And the other problem is when you build, if you do manage to build all of this with this over here, one of the problems is if this goes away for whatever reason, as we saw a few years ago, and it happens every couple of years, then this also is at risk of disappearing, right? And that is why what you'll find is with most wealthy people, or people that understand, how to achieve these goals, they don't make this dependent on something that is active income, right? They want to make this dependent on their passive income assets. Okay, because passive income assets is not something that just disappears, right? Why? Because here you've got things like property. Okay, you might have things like shares. You might have things like businesses that you've invested in. Maybe what else do we have here? Well, these days we've got things like crypto. And I'm gonna put two more things here. I don't really think they fit in here, but I just want to put this here because I have a point to make, right? And then you also get things these days like NFTs, and then one that I do agree with, although it's not everyone that can get it, is something like royalties, from music or something you create, and you license it and you get paid. Let me just get this over here, right? So the problem with this is it takes a huge amount of these assets to be able to generate enough money to have all of this, right? So this here, the problem, the negative, it requires lots of capital, right? So as an example, if you've got a share portfolio, so shares, why do we want shares? Because shares pay dividends, right? If you've got good shares, you get dividends, right? So let's say you have a share portfolio, say worth R1,000,000, okay? I'm going to use dollars as an example as well. Let's say you have a share portfolio of R1,000,000. It sounds like a lot of money, but on average, let's say you're getting a return of about 10% on those shares. That means you're making 100,000 for the year, which is not enough to sustain you with all these things that you want over here, right? That's a problem. But if you had a share portfolio worth $1,000,000, which is in my case, it would be worth, say, 20 million, right? If you have a 20 million or 19 million rand share portfolio, 10%, you're making close to 2 million a year. Now, you can sort of have a lot of these things depending on how big your aspirations and your goals are. Okay, so the point there is you need a large sum of assets over here to be able to pay enough income to sustain this over here, all right, to achieve all these goals. So this is one of the reasons why many of the scammers exist in this area. Why? Because they promise you a whole bunch. They make a whole bunch of unrealistic promises over here. They tell you, we're gonna, we're gonna do crypto for you. We're gonna trade crypto. We're gonna give you some crypto project or whatever, and it's gonna make you a whole bunch of cash, and that's gonna give you this money, and you're gonna be able to get all your dreams. And people fall for it because they're not seeing the possibility of that. They're seeing that, this year, if I can just put a small amount of money in here, like $100, for example, or even 1,000, which is not that much money, and then they're expecting they're going to make a huge amount of this over here. It doesn't happen. That's unrealistic expectations, right? Or they're expecting, I'm going to just put like $100 into Forex. I'm going to start trading Forex, and then I'm going to make all these millions, or someone's going to trade Forex for me, and I'm going to make all these millions. And it also doesn't happen. And these days, the latest one, is more like these NFTs, where they try and tell you that if you get involved in NFTs, and it's all a lot of hype, because like with this year, I don't believe that's really an investment. The people that make money with this, right? And I'm going to explain a concept to you in a moment, is the people that actually make those things. They're the only ones really making money from it. Okay, there's no real world value in it, but I'm putting it here because it's sort of a buzzword, where people are like, should I get involved in this? It's not really a great asset. And then, royalties. I mean, you can, if you've got the money, there's a website that I know of where you can buy the rights of the music owned by your favorite artists. Some artists go onto that website and they basically put their music up for sale. So if you have a lump sum of cash, you can basically pay to get their music, their songs, and whenever those songs then get paid, instead of the music artist now getting paid, now the money will come to you. But once again, when you look at the price or the amount of money that's needed to buy the rights to stuff like that, like to the music, it takes a lot of capital, right? And that's what people mostly don't have. Most people don't have the capital. So the mistake they're making is thinking they can just take a small amount of money, start up in here, and it's going to turn somehow unrealistically into a huge amount of capital. You require a lot of skill to do that. So someone maybe that's highly skilled in property or shares or trading Forex, maybe they could do that, right? But even then, they still require capital. All of this requires capital. So if capital is our main problem, then what is the solution, right? The solution is, when you look at like the wealthiest people, right? They have all of these things, but they didn't struggle to buy this. Why? Because over here, they had what we call a cash cow or cash cows, if they had more than one. Okay, and those cash cows essentially paid for all of these things. Okay, so for many people, those cash cows come in the form of traditional businesses, right? It could be traditional businesses, right? Or maybe the person has a high-paying job or they're professional, like a doctor or a lawyer. Okay, and some of those people, like especially when it comes to things like high-paying jobs and doctors and lawyers, that some of them don't even buy these things. They just take the cash from here and then they go and get all these things over here, right? And it's actually a mistake if they do that. So, if you're a doctor or lawyer or whatever, you should be building these assets over here because these things keep on paying even when this year doesn't exist. So the whole goal is to get as much capital growth in here, or as you want the biggest possible portfolio over here so that it can generate enough income over here to pay for all these things. right? So that even if any of this goes away, you can still have all of these things that you want here in the corner. All right. So high paying jobs is one way. Traditional business, I'm very fond of, for example, online businesses. Why online businesses? What? Because for many people, I've started traditional businesses, and if you just have a normal job, it's very hard to get into some of those traditional businesses because they cost so much of money. Think about the stock you need to buy, the equipment. Maybe you need a premises. It's all very, very capital intensive. Whereas with this over here, even with the traditional business, if you wanted to go grow overseas or grow globally, you need to open another plant in another country. You need to be able to have access to money, raise funding, and everything, right? Whereas with online businesses, you can scale, and they could give you all of these things with a lot less startup capital. You need less startup capital here. You need money, and it's more capital that you require, right? So some of these things can sort of fit in here. So for example, property can work in multiple ways. Some people, this is where property is very passive. This is where it's property investing, so you're collecting rental income. But you'll find some people, maybe they become property developers. That's a full-time job. They're doing it every day, right? So the guy might be building townhouse units and then selling them off, or building shopping centers, selling them off, and then taking the money and then investing in these things over here. That's what I used to see one of my clients doing. He used to build they used to build shopping centers, take the money, and then they'll put it into some of these assets over here. Others would basically build townhouse units. Maybe they build 20 of them. They keep 2 of them, so they do the work. They have 20, they sell 18, and maybe they keep 2 over here, and now that becomes an investment, and they build that portfolio until they have 50 or 100 of those units. I once met a guy that was doing exactly that, and by the time I had met him, the guy already had something like 90 properties over here, all fully paid for, right? Another way you could think about it is some people become very good forex traders, right? And they do this all day, every day. It's the only thing they do. They spend the time and the years and the effort to master this. And then they're able to take money from there and also pump it in over there, right? Now, the scammers, they promise you quick money in the form of things like Forex and crypto and even sometimes shares and, all of those things. Because why? They know that people want this because they're trying to avoid the one thing that this requires, which is work. Okay, because to become, for example, a good forex trader, or to become very good at online businesses, or become a developer, it's going to take you time, right? And some people, they want a shortcut. They're like, no, I don't want any of this here. This is too much work. Just show me how to get all of this with minimal money. And that's why people get scammed. That's why people get scammed, because they don't want to put any effort in. They want this to come for very little money, but they want it to pay for all these things over here. So they're hoping and praying that share that they bought at 1 rand is gonna go up to 1,000 rand or $1,000, right? They're hoping that that crypto that they bought is gonna go from $10 to $500,000 or whatever the case is, some crazy numbers. Okay, they're hoping and praying those things happen, and it's not to say they don't happen, but if you look at guys that have made a lot of money, for example, in crypto, in most cases, you might find, I once read about a guy that put about $8,000. Now that's a lot of money. The guy put about $8,000 into what's that thing called SHIB. And when this thing went up a certain amount, because this guy had invested such a lot of capital over here, the guy became like a multi-millionaire, but he took a big risk over here. That doesn't always happen. That's more luck than skill. Okay, it's more luck than skill. Sometimes you just get it right. Okay, so the key is, if you don't have a lot of money to get into these things, then you need to work on getting the skill to be able to do these things over here. And that skill is going to take you over to this side here, in the case of things like Forex, or maybe if you want to become like a developer in property or something like that, right? Or alternatively, go and start a different business. Like in online, you can start a business that's going to cost you very little money. I cover this in a webinar, by the way. All of this I cover it in a webinar. It's like 90 minutes long, and I explain these concepts in detail, right? I'll just leave a link or something here in the video, right? But I basically show you how to basically take a skill that you already have over here and turn that into an income, because you don't need to buy stock with something that's already in here. You're just taking what you know in whatever field, okay? And you could be very good at boxing, okay? And you could turn that into an online business, okay? You don't have to go start like online business and teach people about online marketing. No, no, no. That's not your experience. That's not your skill. You take something you know over here, turn that into a business, and it'll generate cash eventually, and then you can buy all these things. Okay, so you need to be willing to put in the work over here to be able to get into this, right? Because what I found when I was doing property, right, I had at one point, 10 properties, and what happened was I ran out of capital. I ran out of money because I had a job, and the job was limited income. So it got me a few of these, but then I was like, I have all these assets, but I'm not making any money because I still owed all this money on the debt, right? And that was where I saw the problem that, if you don't have a constant influx of capital, now my property goals at that point, they stopped because I was like, I don't have any more money to invest here. You see, if you don't have any more money to invest, then you need to be very good at attracting other people's money. And other people's money will only come to you if you have the skill. Right? Because if you don't have any skill in property, when people come to me for mentorship in property, for example, some of them I decline them because one of the things I ask on my application is, do you have funds to invest in property? How much money do you have available? And if the answer is I have zero, I don't want to take that person's money because they're going to be wasting their money on mentorship. I can teach them the theory, but there's going to be no practicals happening because we're gonna assess deals, but they won't be able to close any deals because they have a limitation of capital. So the only way they can get a limitation of capital, what I then do with the person is I say, instead of me teaching you property, let me teach you this over here. And when we start making you money over here, then I can teach you and help you over here, because right now it's going to be a struggle. You don't have any skill in property. You're not going to attract other people's money because you yourself don't know much about property, So let's go over here. Let's get you started here. And with time, you'll start attracting investors to get involved with you in these things. Okay? So I hope that makes a lot of sense, right? Don't make the mistake of thinking that you need to focus on this with a little bit of money and you're going to get all of these things. It doesn't work. And people that pitch you big returns over here, and they give you all these big numbers that you're going to end up making, 150% of the time, it's not legitimate. Okay? Don't avoid the work, the time that it takes to become good over here so that you can get these things. Okay? This here shouldn't be here, really. I don't think it should be here. Because Forex it's a full-time thing. There's no such thing as turning small money into big money. It's gonna take some time, right? So focus on that so you can build up this and then you can eventually get to that side. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a comment and I'll see you soon.